What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. Of course, it being Memorial Day weekend, always want to take time to thank a veteran, servicemen and women in this country that's paying the price and sacrifice to keep us country safe, and for all the ones that's paid the ultimate sacrifice. So we thank you and we'll always continue to thank you. Um, so over the past week or so, I've had a lot of people message, probably 100 messages or so. I just asking about the overall health and nutrition on dogs when it comes to wormer and vaccinations, dog feed, etc. So I want to do a little video to try to answer some questions for everybody the best I can. Of course, I'm no vet. None of us are, and everything that I'm going to talk about and that we do is just things that has benefited us through just trial and error and just experimenting with dogs and seeing how it works and how they respond. So when it comes to dog feed, everybody that sees our stuff, we feed Specialty Feeds Value Pack. Now, Specialty Feeds manufactures Value Pack, Caliber, and Tops Dog Feed. Now, this is not a sponsored video for Value Pack. We do work with them directly, but you feed what's working best for your dogs and what you're having a good experience with. I had some guys up around the Carolinas, Virginia, Arkansas, Oklahoma, up north that sent in some messages, asking some questions about a during season feed. Now, they're having some issues keeping weight on dogs and, asking for any tips and advice. So, everybody's got to keep in mind, us being in South Alabama, it stays hot down here. It's very common and typical, wake up on December, January morning loading dogs and it's 80 degrees outside. So, you being in the north, you have a lot harsher winters than we have. Your dogs is having to burn a lot more energy just to keep body temperature up. You can probably hear my little ones over here. I got a litter of newborns. So your dogs, just to stay warm and process enough energy just to make it through the winter months is using, a lot more nutrients, a lot more energy than what our dogs are down here. So what I recommend, and you may already be doing so, you may not, is feed a higher fat, higher protein feed. Now, if you are doing that and you're still having issues with weight, just up the amount that you're feeding. If you're feeding once a day, try feeding twice a day. Feed the same amount that you've been feeding once a day, feed it in the morning and in the afternoon. Now, if you are feeding over what is called for or what you should be feeding that dog and you're still having weight issues, it could be the protein and fat intake that they're getting from the feed that you're feeding. I'm actually running an experiment on my dogs right now to try to answer some questions for other people because I can't best answer them if I do not have an experience with it. A lot of people has asked me about corn-based feeds and non-corn-based feeds, gluten-free feeds, and feeds that has gluten. I've been feeding the red bag of Value Pack for about 4 years. Now here recently, I just switched to a silver bag, which is a corn-free feed, gluten-free feed, soy-free feed. Now the red bag has done fantastic for me. I've had zero issues with it. It has held weight on my dogs off season, during season. Had no stool or bowel issues with the feed. But to try to answer some questions for you, I'm doing an experiment with it and see how my dogs react. Now, I have done some studying on corn-based feeds, and you can get 10,000 answers for one topic. So when it comes to corn-based, I have read that some claims for it to be that it's just a filler. Some claims it is not a filler. Now, which one of those is correct, I'm not sure. Again, I have had no issues with a corn-based feed. But I am feeding a no corn right now just to see how my dogs react, if I can tell a difference. Now, when it comes to gluten, I have read and always heard that gluten does not harm a dog the way it does a human. In some cases, very small amount of cases, dogs do develop issues because of gluten. Now, I personally feed gluten free just because I'm not going to chance it. If it's bad for me, it very well could be bad for them. So I do feed gluten free. Just my personal opinion and what I like to do. Now, when it comes to again, to the proteins and fats, your climate has a lot to do with that, where you're at. Look at what your dog's body is having to do just to make it through a day and a night. The kind of weather that you're in. Now, I've had a lot of guys reach out and ask about weight on a dog again, but because they're running 5 to 6 days a week, or some 7 days a week, every other week. A lot of guys take off all hunting season, so they're running 7 days a week. Now, if you were doing that, there's absolutely no problem with that if your dogs can handle it. Now, if you're doing so and having weight issues, again, if you're feeding a higher protein, higher fat feed, up your amounts. If you are feeding like a 24-20 feed, then go up to a 30% protein feed. Up the intake of proteins and fats that they're getting. All this goes into how your dogs are running, how many miles they're covering a week, the climates you are in. The best thing to do is if you're having issues with what you're doing now, I know it's not working. Switch some things up and see how your dogs react. And in the end of doing that, you will see what's working and what's not, and you'll be able to fit that into your diet for your dogs. So switching gears a little, I've had a lot of questions on just the general upkeep, wormers, vaccinations. Had a lot of parvo questions, distemper questions. So here's what I do on worming. I worm every 4 weeks, once a month. Now I have 3 different wormers that I use that I rotate. Ivomec I use monthly, every 4 weeks. 3 to 4 days later, after worming with the Ivomec, I come back behind and worm with Safeguard. Now, a lot of people says you can back Safeguard up directly with Ivomec on the same day, and you probably can. I have just always skipped a few days before I done it. Every other month on that 4th week, I still worm with Ivomec, and then a week later, I worm with Zermectin Gold for tapeworm. Now, that's a very touchy subject with a lot of people. Zermectin Gold can be very, very harmful and deadly to a dog if you overdose with it. You have to be very careful that you're giving the correct dosage. Now, what I do typically is I take on my finger, it's a paste, and I use about half the size of a toothbrush bristle, and I wipe it on the tongue every other month. I rotate the Safeguard and the Zermectin. For a long time, I did not know that Ivomec does not cover tapeworm. Ivomec does not cover tapeworm. I actually told some guys that throughout this week that did not know that either. So there's probably a lot more out there that did not know that. Now, again, all this I'm talking about, you probably already know, and a lot of you probably already do. But I have interacted and dealt with a lot of new dog hunters during this breeding season. Just reaching out, asking questions. They either got their first time hounds or have purchased their new dogs from us that they're starting with. So, it's our duty as dog men that's done the trial and error on a lot of things to help these guys out, or women, girls, and try to save them from some of the hardships that they may run into on losing dogs because of just not knowing. So, if you know a younger generation of dog hunters out there that's getting into it, lend a helping hand, some advice. I've had a lot of guys that's taught me a lot of things that I do now that I would have had to learn the hard way, but because they reached out, it saved me from a lot of heartache and hardships with dogs. So when it comes to parvo and distemper, now, luckily, knock on wood, I have not had a big issue with distemper. So, if you have a direct distemper question, I can get you an answer from somebody other than, just telling you the routine vaccinations, your 5, 7s, 9s, away shots when they're young. But I have never just vaccinated directly for distemper because I've never had an issue with it. other than what's in their routine vaccinations. Now, when it comes to parvo, I think everybody out there and every kennel pen out there has at some point had an issue with parvo or know somebody that has. Parvo is a very, very bad thing. Now, parvo, what it does is the virus itself is not what kills the dog. What kills the dog is dehydration. So, if you have a dog that has parvo, Pedialyte water, because they're not drinking, they're not eating. It is very, very crucial to keep water, just keep fluids, pumping down them. If you have access to IVs, if you can get them, IVs work great. Just build a bubble on their back. If you have any questions more about IVs, get with me and we'll talk about that. But just go to Walmart or any local grocery store. Just get a jug of Pedialyte, pull it in a syringe, and shoot it down their throat. Just, as much as you can. Keep them full of fluids. They got to have fluids because dehydration is what actually kills the dog. The preventative maintenance for parvo. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of products out there that's actually mixed and you can buy off the shelf for parvo. But what we do and what we have found and heard and seen is that bleach kills parvo. So what we do is if we got a new litter of puppies coming, or just, we do it monthly anyway, every other month or so. We take a 5-gallon bucket. You take about a quarter of a jug of bleach, Clorox, dishwashing liquid, and just put enough in there till it foams, and mix it with water, and just flood your pens. Bucket after bucket after bucket, flood your pens, because parvo is in the soil. Now, I've had a lot of people say, well, I got concrete floors and I'm still getting parvo. Okay, well, you got to think about it. You take your grown dogs, you take them out hunting, training, they go to this pen for breeding or studding, and they come back. Well, that's how you're getting parvo in on your concrete floors. They're walking it back in, and then your puppies is catching it. So even if you have concrete floors, flood them pens. Like I said, Clorox, bleach, dishwashing liquid, and water. Just flood pens. And it does not hurt to do it, like I said, once a month, every other month, but it's very crucial before you have puppies to do that. Just because you give a dog a vaccination for parvo does not mean that dog cannot still catch parvo. I've had dogs get parvo and they've had every shot they were supposed to get, been kept up, and they still get it. So, since we have been doing so, we have noticed that it has done very, very well on the cases of parvo in pens and kennels, and we've had very, very, very high success with doing that. So if you're having a parvo issue, do this and try it, and I guarantee you'll see a difference in the amount of puppies you have getting parvo. If you do not have an issue with parvo, it's still a good thing to do. It's just preventative maintenance. So again, anything that I've covered in this video, if you have any beneficial facts or statements to put in, feel free to do so. Again, I'm not a vet. I do not know everything. I do not know everything there is to know. This temper was a big one that I had questions on, and I'm working on getting some answers and putting together some stuff for y'all. So if anybody sees it and wants to add to the distemper side of it, feel free to do. Again, a lot of you out there is probably already doing these things and know these things. And has been doing them probably longer than I've been alive. But, and there's always somebody that does not know it, that has not heard that, We actually, had somebody tell us about the bleach and the dishwashing liquid and the water for parvo, and it has worked. You go on Google, you're probably not going to find that because it's more of a, home remedy. But it works. It works great. So, give them a try. When it comes to the nutrition things, if you're feeding Value Pack, dog feed or Caliber or Tops, and you want some more nutritional information on the feeds and the ingredients and more than what you can just get off the back of the bag, get with me. I can make some phone calls and I can get those things for you. Anything that we can do to help benefit you, and anything you can help to benefit us, that's what it's all about, is helping each other. So If you have any more questions on anything, don't ever hesitate to reach out, comment on our stuff, ask a question, message me. If you got my number, call me. If you do not have my number and you want it, all you gotta do is ask. I mean, I'm an open book, you know, and I love helping people, and I just love talking dogs with anybody. I mean, if you just want to call and talk dogs, call me. So, you know, to all my kennel guys out there, we've had a great breeding season this year. We're still dropping litters, still got some bred. It's been our biggest year yet. You know, of course, thank you to everybody that's buying and routinely every year comes back and you know, and is buying our stuff. We greatly appreciate it. And again, to my kennel guys, wherever you're at, whichever state you're in, thank you, because I definitely could not do it without you. It takes every dog, every pen, every person we got to make this happen. So big thanks to everybody, everybody that shares and likes and comments and you know, follows what we do and interacts with us. You know, we greatly appreciate y'all, and you know, y'all keep hunting, keep the tradition going, and again, don't ever hesitate to reach out. Y'all have a good weekend, and I'll catch y'all later.